Since the purpose is to discuss the vaping policy and the enforcement of that, I'm going to let Mr. Pitts talk first and just let everybody in the room know what the vaping policy is currently. And then after that, we'll open it up, we'll have some questions and discussion, and we'll talk about it that way.
Yeah, so Dr. Pinkerton, if you'll pull up that slideshow. So I kind of went back a few years to kind of talk through how we got to where we are today. So went back to 21-22. 2021 was the year where it was our first year back from COVID, and we were kind of here, kind of not, all of that. So 21-22 was our first year when everybody was back. And you see there, our discipline policy for the first offense that year was 3 days of in-school suspension. That all of this data I pulled through the end of April because I wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples. So May is not included in this at all. So in year 21-22, from the start of school to the end of April, there were 115 vaping incidents, and our policy for first offense was 3 days of in-school suspension. Dr. Pinkerton, if you'll change. Then the next year, we implemented the 10 days of out-of-school suspension. August of 22 was whenever that started. You see there, August, or the start of school through the end of April. That first year, we had 123 vaping incidents, and then the next year, we had 73. Something to point out about this is that 10 days of out-of-school suspension is the most that our building administration can do. If we do anything more than that, it has to come to the board for the expulsion. And so what we heard from our building level administrators is that we were seeing a lot of kids that were vaping, going home for 10 days, for 2 weeks, and then coming back to school, and they were repeat offenders. They would get caught with another vape. And so we wanted to try to instill some sort of vaping education program. And so that started probably the end of 23, went into 23, 24, trying to figure out how to do that. And the reality is, because we were already doing 10 days of out-of-school suspension, we couldn't enforce a drug education program. So then we talked about, okay, well, if we did 10-day, or if we backed up and did 5 days and did it after school, could they come up, that sort of thing. We had a lot of concerns about transportation and those that live in East End, or those that live in Grapevine, or, you know, do they have the transportation to get to us? So then, that's why we landed on, if you'll change the slide, we landed on 5 days of in-school suspension, and that allowed us to require that support program, right? And so whenever they were with us during in-school suspension, they had to do the support program. We had more control over that. We didn't have to worry about transportation. We didn't have to worry about those things. And so you see there from April, or from August to the end of April of this year, we're sitting at 51 vaping incidents. When like I said, we were hearing a lot of repeat offenders. This year, we're currently sitting at less than 5 repeat offenders. So small that today I went to the high school and I said, this data can't be right, there's gotta be more repeat offenders. And they said, no, I mean, it's been a very low number of repeat offenders. So Dr. King, if you'll change the slide, that's all of it together. Like I said, going back from the 21-22 school year. One thing I'll add to this that I think gets lost in this conversation, we treat at school, we treat a vape that has nicotine in it just like a tobacco product, right? So when I say vaping incidents, I'm specifically talking about e-cigarettes, right? They have nicotine, tobacco, that sort of thing. If it has anything else in it, such as THC, we treat that as a drug offense, right? We automatically, that's drugs, that's a 10-day out of school suspension, that is a recommendation for expulsion. That's what we do at the 612 level, right? We have a couple of in lieu of expulsion programs that if a kid is caught with drugs, that they can enroll in so that they're not expelled. But again, it goes back to a lot of that drug education courses required. There is some community service and some other things in there as well. At the K-5 level, it looks a little bit different. Because those programs are specifically for 612, and so the way we're structured right now, you could have let's say a 16-year-old that gets caught with THC, they would have an in lieu of expulsion program. They would have a second chance, whereas a 9-year-old wouldn't. And so we treated those, all of those is just like a vape, and so they're going in school suspension. So that's where we are today. Just wanted to kind of present that, and then also make a distinct difference between vapes and vapes with THC.
So I know we have a second and third offense as well. Do you have the slide for that, or can you read?
I don't. So our current policy is the first offense is the 5 days of in-school suspension with the required support program. The second offense is 5 days of out-of-school suspension plus 2 days of in-school suspension, and they have to repeat that required support program. Then the third offense is 10 days suspension from school with a recommendation of the school on the third offense.
And that's for nicotine.
That's for nicotine.
Quick question. Did you say what, so I understand, did you say if they're caught with THC, they can go to second chance?
If it's THC, we treat it just like a drug. So we have 2 in lieu of expulsion programs, and depending on which one they qualify for, there are 2 different ones. We have one called the Second Chance Program. So if a student has a vape with THC, they have it, they're consuming it themselves, then they're eligible for the Second Chance Program. If they're distributing that, they're not eligible for that, then they're eligible for the Learning Center Program, which is a different in lieu of expulsion program.
And those are separated from the rest of the population. They don't mix at all. Is that right?
The Learning Center Program it's housed at ALA, at our Alternative Learning Center. The Second Chance Program is still they're still at whatever school they're at. But that's why if they are distributing it, they're not eligible for that because we don't want them to stay with the students that they move to the learning center.
So what is the difference, because I don't know, between the learning center and second chance?
What's the difference?
Well, what different, and how they differ?
Well, the learning center is housed at the Alternative Learning Academy. There's different requirements such as there's a dress code there. There's just several different things that it's a little bit more intense. It's they're on a computer program. It's a self-paced computer program with a teacher in the room. The Second Chance program has a lot of the same things, such as the required direct education and that sort of thing. But they're still like at high school, and so they're still going class to class, getting the support versus isolated with the learning center.
May not be the best analogy, but so like when we do a learning center is for those kids that were passing or distributing the drug. And so when we separate those from the population, they're in their own, they wear a uniform, there's no transportation, so they can't ride a bus and be mixed in with population. And they eat as a group, so they're not mixed in at all. It's almost like school jail, I guess you would say. They're completely separated. Now, every one of these kids, anytime there's a drug related, whether they're using it themselves or they're passing it, law enforcement is involved. Actually, even with a vape, I think each kid, even if it's a nicotine vape, they're being ticketed. They're being ticketed by law enforcement. If it is a THC or whatever, I'm sure there's different measures that they can do that. Whatever prosecution is there, that's separate from school. But each kid's getting ticketed for a vape, and they also get, if prosecuted if it happened to be, THC. So.
Okay, let me ask this question. Do they get to go back to second chance more than once? Like if they get in trouble this year, they get in trouble next year, are they allowed to go back to second chance and they start over? Are they considered repeat offenders? Are they considered, how does that work?
Well, I'll have to read through handbook, but I believe I believe they're only eligible one time. So like, if they go to the learning center, they only get that one time their 6th through 12th grade year, or career.
Is that the same as second chance?
And let me read on second chance.
Well, one issue we have, and this is a community-wide issue, we got irresponsible adults giving vapes to irresponsible kids that are giving them more irresponsible kids, and that is spread down to the younger grades. And I'm gonna be wrong, I know they called the police today, but people on the street work on this too. But that's why I'm saying, if a kid keeps committing offense, we gotta think about the safety of the general population than those few kids. And I know that sounds harsh, but I got a police report here where an older kid was instructing the younger kids on the bus how to do a vape. And so we gotta stop that chain in there. And most of these kids that I'm hearing from claim that their friends have been caught multiple times. Maybe not back to back. That's why I'm asking, how many second chances do they get?
One.
So after that, they get a 10-day suspension?
If they're in the second chance program, okay, so that's a good question. So if you have a vape that contains THC, you're not distributing it, it's just for you, and you go to second chance, and you are in violation of your second chance contract for whatever that reason is, you're then put in the learning center, which is at the Alternative Learning Academy. Violating anything there is expulsion.
So that
if you are distributing and you go straight to the learning center, if you violate anything on the learning center, it's expulsion.
Okay, say you get through this program this year, you come back next year, do it over. You start off with a clean slate, so you go back through the process again?
No,
so if I come to school next year with a THC vape, I'll be expelled.
Let me ask, so like when we do an expulsion hearing, I think we can dismiss the kid for the remainder of the year. So does the law doesn't let us go more than a year, correct? So once they start, if we get them out for a year, let's say they come recommended for expulsion for the remainder of the year, if we do that, after that year, I don't know that we can deny them entry back into the school.
I didn't say entry back in the school.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you go, say like I spent the whole first semester between Second Chance and Learning Center, because I'm a baby, okay? Then I come back next semester, do I have a clean record, or do I get expelled?
One time, your 6th through 12th grade.
So if I get in trouble in 10th grade, and I get in trouble in senior, I'll be expelled in KHCB.
Then the second chance program is no longer an option for you. If you've been a second chance.
But is the Learning Center another option?
Well, so you're eligible for the Learning Center one time in your 6th through 12th grade career. You're eligible for the Learning Center one time in your 6th through 12th grade career.
Can I speak?
Sure.
Okay, all right, my son in 6th grade was caught with a regular vape. He received, 3 days ISS. He received a $50 ticket from Miss Mary at the middle school, and he received a 1,500 word essay. He didn't care about working off the $50. All he cared about was doing the essay. He did not want to write 1,500 words on the dangers of vaping. I think if y'all, in this punishment, if we can make these kids study what they're putting into their bodies, the more education that they get on what they are actually putting into their bodies, maybe it might wake some of them up. I know it did mine, because I actually sat with him the entire time, and I didn't write it for him, but I assisted him in how to write it correctly, and he learned a lot of things, and he has not been a repeat offender since then. He's now fixing to finish the 7th grade, going into 8th grade. It's changed a lot in him, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because when I caught him in 6th grade, we won't discuss what we had our discussion at home, but we had a pretty serious discussion at home, because I don't play that.
Well, I don't know this to be true, but with the required support program, I'm sure there's some aspect of writing an essay about things you drug abuse or
Yeah.
something in that when you go to the second chance program. I'm saying
He had to turn it into the probation, the juvenile probation, he had to turn it into her by a certain amount of
So it
time.
sounds like the court system's doing something,
Yes.
we're doing something as well. I think we're
Right,
doing that
correct.
same thing that you just mentioned. It looks like someone back there is
Ms.
not.
Ingram, did you know about the program?
I think the way the day works for them, they have a dedicated time for individual and group therapy, drug-related, every day in the TLC room. And then if you're in second chance, it's a once-a-week mandatory after-school hour and a half. Yeah. So six meetings after school for second chance, where they have a required drug education class that they do.
There's also still mandatory drug testing.
For
In
both?
those programs, there's a mandatory drug testing, so.
Random.
And we've had several that we've had to do expulsion hearings for, I don't know how many already this year, but where that show 10? Many. So, and almost every one that we expelled this year were those that came back and had failed the drug test. And you fail that drug, if you signed up for that program, you were making a commitment, you were doing all those things, when you failed the drug test, administration recommended them to us, and you're out.
And so for clarity, you could re-enter the second chance program based on certain things, 6 through 12. Because you have to understand, second chance, you could be in second chance because of a nicotine vape, and you could also be in second chance because of THC use. It's a year. You could re-enter second chance. You only have the option of going to TLC one time. You'll never be offered that again 6 through 12. So once those kids come out of that program, then if they have another situation, it's recommendation is expulsion. And the recommendation is expulsion on everything except for the nicotine vape.
I thought
So,
Mr. Pitts just said that there wasn't a second chance for second chance. She said there was a second chance.
I think what she just said is per offense. So like a nicotine versus
THC.
THC versus, I mean, maybe in a, I don't know, you guess.
there's different situations, yeah, like, so if you were to get nicotine, if you were to be put into the second chance for a repeat offender for nicotine, you basically come out of that program after an academic, well, actually it's a calendar year, right? After a calendar year. We're not going to you don't go necessarily to TLC for 2 years later, another nicotine vape offense. So TLC and second chance, I think if we read it properly, you could go back into second chance.
So,
No, never mind.
I've got-
Mr. Soaps is saying no, and he would know.
Page 147 of the handbook, participating in the second chance program in lieu of expulsion is an opportunity that can be taken advantage of only one time
And
in a
then you go
student's
to
6 through 12 education.
But they do enter back into second chance after successfully completing TLC, almost like probation. So you go into the most advanced program with the greatest offense, have your time there, fulfill all your commitments, and then go back to second chance almost as a supervised moment with your counselors, with your local administration, back in your home campus, still with all the accountability. So you're technically back in there twice, but it's really part of the overall program of trying to rehabilitate and keep the kid on track for a longer period of time, instead of just dragging them right back.
Basically like an adult probation.
That's right.
It's not a place, it's a program.
It's a program.
Yes, it's a support program.
If we use Mr. Lisenby's metaphor of TLC being like school jail, when students finish in the TLC program and come back to school, there's a probationary period. It's not going into second chance, but it's a probationary period that has the same restrictions as second chance. They're still drug tested, they're still on academic probation, they're still on disciplinary probation. We still monitor attendance very closely, and it's to provide supports and accountability for those students who have finished their time at TLC when they transition back into the regular school environment. So it's not a formal placement in the second chance, but it's like a step down with support and accountability to help students transition back into the regular school environment.
okay, look at these numbers you have up there. 123, 73. So we had a 10-day expulsion, and we dropped 50 students. We went to the new policy, we only added 20 more. We reduced 50 students under the other policy, and we didn't go down to 22, the next policy. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
But I think the thing to focus on is the number of repeat offenders. We're not having a whole bunch of kids come back and continuing to vape, and so we're catching them again. That number is drastically lower.
well,
For us, it's an ongoing process, and it has been, as you can see, since 21, 22, and we've dropped every year, since then. So we, evidently, our administrators and people are doing something right with these kids. Not gonna say everything is right, we can't catch them all, but it does look like our policies are working somewhat.
We think that we can pinpoint some, but not all, of why that number is less. Like why 2020, 24, 25 is different, why it's lower. We have a whole new bathroom system that if you are in a certain area of the building, you get a color code, and you can only go to the restroom of that color code. And so now it's kind of a little bit easier to identify kids as they move about the building, that there were some places that maybe they would prefer to go to if they were going to do something that they shouldn't be. So we think that certain things like that, and we had multiple students give us feedback that they preferred the 10 days out versus, and that's talking about nicotine vapes only. So we hope that they're just not in the bathrooms so randomly throughout the building as maybe the 2 years that you're looking at, the 22, 23, 24.
well, I'll just tell you this, and I know I can be totally wrong, it'll be the first time today, it'll be the last time tonight. But since I made my post, I've had hundreds of people contact me, and they swear every campus has got a THC smoking bathroom basically in it. The parents are afraid to come forward, or what will happen. Also, when you talk about these numbers and people dropping, maybe we're not getting many reported. I mean, you look at everything two ways. You know, but it seems like to me still, we're focusing more on those kids than we are the kids that come to school with good intentions. And that's like, I got a police report here where they gave it to the kids on the bus. I got another police report here, you know, where it passed it out, you know, to school. you know, I think we're gonna have to strengthen our policy. So I was telling you, 3 years ago, I used to didn't have a policy. We had a young girl in the diaper from vape tank at Sheridan High School. We had one kid taken out in the ambulance due to an illegal THC vape that had higher levels than you could buy at the store. Another kid whose parents picked it up. And now we've got it down to the grade school level. Now, I'm saying, hey, this working great, just sitting out here is hard to believe. We got it spreading that far. And when I got multiple police reports of more and more kids doing it. Also, another question, so if I go to school tomorrow and I flunk a drug test and I show positive THC, what's gonna happen to me?
Well, if it's your second offense, you're gonna be recommended for expulsion.
I said my first offense, what happens?
Then you'll meet with your parents, you will have an opportunity to either enter into, you know, if you're distributing or what, you'll enter in your second chance or learning center, or if your parents do not agree with all the stipulations of those programs, you will be recommended for expulsion and be out for at least a.
Will I be able to go through my regular school day that day?
I don't think so. No. Our administrators are all shaking their head now.
Anyone that's found in possession or under the influence goes home that day. And our SRO officer handles that piece of it.
And just to clarify, if a student is already on the second chance program and fails a drug test, that is an immediate violation of the second chance program, and that student would be suspended and sent home pending additional action, whatever that may be next, potentially the TLC program, potentially an expulsion.
Well, I'm saying, let's don't talk about second chance. Just say I walk into school tomorrow and I flunk a drug test. I test positive THC. Am I gonna be able to do my normal activities the rest of that day?
No.
Are you sure of that?
Yes, and it depends on why we drug test them, right? Not all of our kids just get.
No, see, I got caught with the
tested.
vape.
What's that?
See, I got caught with the vape.
So-
The vape tested THC.
So you'd be enrolled in second chance or learning center?
So I'm gonna go through my regular day of school.
No,
Will I still be allowed to do activities?
no,
What about the vote test?
no.
Okay, I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
Cause I can prove you wrong on that.
Okay.
I'm not gonna divulge information, but that's what I want to know. It's not being equally done. I'll bring you the names and information tomorrow. Because we gotta be fair about this policy. We can't do it one for one and one for another.
Your numbers up there, is that just nicotine vapes, or is that nicotine and THC combined? Those are good, so the numbers are actually higher if you were to include THC vapes with it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have those
Do you
numbers?
have those numbers?
I don't have them with me now, no, sir. I would say, yes, all of them.
Is this a large number of THC vape? We're just out of curiosity.
I'll be lying to you if I try to tell you.
I understand. We're just curious.
Well, since you knew the meeting was gonna be called about THC and vaping, how come you didn't bring those numbers?
Well, because the petition was about the vaping.
Well, THC and vaping it all together, it all starts with THC and then found elementary school.
I pulled vaping numbers because of the.
Okay, I'll file another one, we'll get that information. The public needs to know what's going on. This is our community also, you know.
How quickly can you make those numbers available?
I would just have to run data, just.
Each month?
I mean, each one of these, our law enforcement, all these would be recorded with law enforcement as well, or SROs.
It doesn't take me long to run the reports. If that's.
I
if that's
also
the case, it
would
just
love to
be-
see that numbers while I'm asking. I'll wait, but I would love to see those numbers as well.
I think Chad just compiled these numbers, since it seemed like the question was about the change in the policy we made to the nicotine base. As far as I know, we've never changed the policy on THC base. It's always been, you know, you get caught, you got one extra chance, and if you blow that chance, you're done. We haven't modified that, it's always been the policy, but we have modified the nicotine, policy, as you can see the numbers there. So I think that's the basis of why we just pulled these numbers, because that was, it seemed to be the question the public had, or Mr. Strong had.
Anybody can, if you have a comment or, you know.
I have another question. Why wouldn't you want that post taken down about this incident at the elementary school?
I wasn't involved in it.
You were involved in that? Okay. You didn't contact Coach, Sheriff Roberts about it? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay.
What if on these different offenses where you're in school suspension, what if you're out of in-school suspension days? Where do you go? Is that all?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear very good.
You've got 10 days of out-of-school suspension, or you've got 5 days of in-school suspension. Kid gets in trouble and he's required to spend the 5 days of in-school suspension. And he doesn't have the in-school suspension days left because there used to be a policy that you could only stay for so many days.
The first offense is 5 days in school suspension.
Okay, but what if that kid that's going in there for his first offense of vaping, he's already been in there for too many tardies or other things that he got, you know, so do they still have the 10 days?
So if they were
policy?
out of ISS days, those days would turn into suspensions. And that's it's per semester, it resets at semester.
On the 10 days?
On the 10 days, at least that's a semester.
So, my name's Kim Crosby, and I'm probably gonna say some things that is not gonna be agreeable here with everybody. I had triplets that went through Sheridan, and I've been in law enforcement in some way or other, from federal, state, juvenile, to I teach it now at a college for over 35 years. Some of the things that I've heard here tonight disturbs me. Some things are good, and some things I hear disturbs me. Expelling a child is probably, statistics and data and studies are showing, is one of the worst things you can do. It puts so much stigma on that child where they don't wanna come back to school. It decreases their academic process. It costs money for the school to even go through the process of expulsion. And then it can lead to depression, mental health disorders, and more criminal behavior out on the streets, because, and it puts them out of their routine. They are coming to school. So I did a lot of research on this when I was asked to do this, and for somebody that was always pro punishment, pro put them in jail, pro put them in prison, as I've gotten older, and now that I teach criminal justice, and I hear and I see some of the things that have gone on through the years, I'm not so much for that anymore. It comes a time where the school needs to work with the community as well as the juvenile office, because you have to bring the law into it. We're not, I mean, having a vape at school is against the law in Arkansas. You can give them a fine from $10 to $100. However, y'all keep having repeat offenders. I hear good things from y'all about the second chance and this other program. I wasn't aware of it, but I did hear something that just about sent me over the board, and that was that they wear uniforms. So they are actually put a label on them that they are different from other children. To me, that is the most demeaning thing you could do to a child. I don't care if they've smoked marijuana, I don't care if they've smoked a cigarette. To me, you're demeaning them. I worked at the Arkansas State Hospital. We don't even separate them from inmates that are coming in from the jail that are in there for psychological evaluations. It's discriminatory. The education that y'all are giving them, I'm not sure. Are you setting them in front of a computer and that's how they're getting the education? Because I promise you that they're not learning from that. It's more of, you have to sit down and talk to these kids, ask these kids what's going on in their home life, which is unbelievable what some of these kids are going through. Normally they're doing this with their friends or peer pressure. They're doing it because they're seeing it at home and they're sneaking it away from the home life. And sometimes these things are fruity. They taste good. They were put in to say that they were better than, using cigarettes, and that's not true. But, you give a kid something that's fruity and tastes like candy, they're gonna wanna use it. There's vape monitors you can put into the bathrooms. There's different things you can do that our school districts here in Arkansas are doing. I applaud y'all for doing these programs. I just think that there should be a lot more counseling, one-to-one, integration with these kids, and because if you think about it, an addict is an addict, and you can't just say, we're sending you to second chance, and if you don't get right in second chance, we're expelling you, we're done with you. These are kids, their brains are not matured. If y'all give up on them, what is society saying about that? So, a lot of people are like, it's parents, it starts at home. Some of these kids don't even have parents. They're in jail, they're in prison. Their grandmas are raising them who don't have a clue as what these vape cigarettes are. I had a kid in college, and he actually told me, because I teach openly. I learn from them, they learn from me. We talk about things. He told me that he didn't like high school. He had a lot of trouble in high school because he had to get the rest of his siblings ready to go to school. So there's a lot of undertones in why some of these kids are acting out. That's just my thought on it. There's a lot of other stuff that I had here, but I just think that there ought to be some kind of a committee set together that looks at each case individually, peer programs set up for these kids to follow them through the rest of the way to make sure they're not failing and everything like that. When I was a juvenile officer here about 20 years ago, the school didn't put up with anything. They sent those kids right over to the juvenile office like that. Fighting, anything, they got sent over. I do know that there's a lot of disparity in punishment here, because you have the good kids that don't get anything, and you have those bad kids that have labels and they're gonna get them every time. And that's not fair. It's like the death penalty. If you're gonna do punishment, it's gotta be certain, swift, and severe. And it's gotta be across the board at every school. And that's just my thoughts on it. I'm just not about throwing away kids, because I see where they end up. And 50% of inmates do not have a high school diploma and are illiterate.
Ms. Crosby, I appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate your input. Your credentials are very impressive. I know you know a lot about the subject. There's a lot of things about the job that we love, and there's very few things that we hate. You can probably guess one of the few things we hate is special needs. The other one is expelling kids. It breaks our heart. We get these packets, we look at it. The kids' notes from the principals, their GPAs, everything. It's heartbreaking. But by the time a kid gets to us, to where they've been expelled, they've been given a second chance. And I understand you want to give them more chances and more intervention and all that. And that's great. I wish we could do that too. And it breaks my heart when they expel kids. But when we get to the point of expelling a kid, it's terrible for that kid. It has detrimental impacts to that kid. It's a straight prison pipeline, I'm sure. But it's in the interest of the other kids that we're trying to protect. We're trying to take that kid out of that environment and away from all the other kids, because they've proven that they can't behave themselves and they can't come to school around other kids without involving drugs. So when we expel a kid, it breaks my heart. I hate it. I know it sets that kid up for failure in the future, but we're expelling that kid to get them away from the other kids and keep a safe environment in our schools.
We got to realize we can't save the world. Our focus right here today, tonight, is Sheridan schools. And I know that sounds cruel, that sounds harsh, and I've dealt with a lot of trouble with kids. Two of them sitting right here with me. I'm just telling you, they're hard headed. But anyway, I'm trying to tell you, we got to focus on the kids that come to school with the intention of doing right. Now, every kid's gonna mess up. I'm not saying kick them out on the get-go. We can't give them second chances and all these chances, because it affects the kids they come back to. We need, and I'm not speaking so much as just the vape, just the THC and the drugs. But anyway, if we let those kids keep coming back, and one bad vape gets in our school, like that girl got 3 years ago, is all these programs worth it? And an innocent kid got it? You know, I've had parents reach out to me. I had a girl tell me Friday morning, she said, my brother is goofy. They call him shoot each other and tail BB guns the other day. But his parents had to talk with him about that post, because he's goofy. So if somebody would bring one, he'd be the first one to take him what he's doing. Now I know it sounds great. We're gonna counsel, we're gonna second chance, third chance. We're gonna say, well, it didn't happen. Let's get real here. Now I'm not saying the first go round, but we can't keep like we can't have a revolving door. We gotta sit down and decide we're gonna keep the main kids in the school safe. And I wanna make a suggestion. I think you've already talked to Mr. Roberts about it. I think starting next year, we need to have hardcore drug sweeps. I think we need to allow our police departments to come in here at any time, unannounced, with the dogs and crews, and go through our schools. And I don't think they should have to ask permission.
Do they not do that now? When I was in school here, that happened in junior high and high school. On the regular, and I graduated in 2000. That happened on the regular when I was in junior high.
Year before that, but I need to issue it. think we need to get our police department involved. They're a free resource. They're very willing to help. I think we hit the halls hard enough, that's gonna make a better effect of some of these programs. And if kids don't wanna do right, either we need to buy a building out in the country and put them out there like a pig farm and give them math, English, and feed a cow, but keep them away from the kids that come here for the main purpose of being here. And I think right now, we got too many kids coming back that create problems for the other kids. I hear parents tell it, but most people are afraid to speak out about this. And most people are ashamed to speak out on some of it. They think that their kids do some of it. But we need to tie it down, because we done got down to the grade school with this problem. Any way you look at it, it's not going away, it's spreading. And I think if we cut it off the top, it'll help save the bottom. The reason I'm here tonight, I wanna know that I've done what I can do in case something goes wrong.
Where is the top, Lynn?
Huh?
Where is the top? Cut it off at the top.
I'm talking about the high school kids. I'm talking about the high school kids.
Where does that start?
I say start at the middle school.
Starts.
Get the middle school.
Huh?
Yeah.
Where do they get them? It's illegal for them to buy.
I understand
Where do
that.
they get them?
It has to come from some adult,
It has to come
somewhere.
from somebody.
Some adult
It's coming
somewhere.
into our school. We can't control those people out in the community that are providing these vapes and THC to these kids. All we can do is deal with the kids and try to help them when they get here.
If you scare them enough, they won't bring it to school.
The parents don't.
I have a question, and this,
Like I said, I think our numbers show that it's helped. I think our second chance programs, I think our TLC programs are helping. We still have, I mean, I was here a few years ago when we were expelling kids every month, and we're having to call special meetings.
I've been there
Expel kids.
for the same thing.
I've been there.
Same
since-
thing. Don't have THC, but then nicotine.
Yeah, we ain't got all the numbers, that's the main thing.
We would like to see it added in, or the separate, we'd like to see both. The regular tobacco, nicotine vapes, and the numbers on the THC vapes. I mean, it'd be curious to know, because I mean, surely if it's a THC vape, the law enforcement, I mean, that's a drug charge, and that enters into a whole different realm of consequences and everything else.
They would be easy enough to get, because those kids are going into one of these other programs, so all that'll be talked about.
Do you have to get the numbers out of your office, or can you do it remotely?
Well, as far as pulling the numbers,
Yeah.
I pulled these from our,
Server?
statewide database, yeah.
You have to be in your office to do that, or can you do it right here?
Somebody might could, I can't.
Ms. Marsh?
oh, well,
Ms. Marcy.
first thing I wanna say as a parent is I have a kid at the high school and the middle school. I wish you'd run the drug dog every week. I mean, not because, just to catch somebody, but just, I think if they see that,
They won't do
it might help. Okay, and this question is to Dean again. So you worked,
Use your own name.
I'm digging on my.
We're relatives.
I'm digging on my cousin here. So you worked in the juvenile system years ago, I know that. And you said back then there was punishment, it was given. I know that's not what this meeting is about, but I would be curious to see when it does get to that point. Are they still doing what they used to do 20 years ago? I know you can't answer that. I'm saying that might be a question we look at. What's happening there when they get to the court system? Because I do think we can only do so much, but I think when that punishment starts being given out, that might be a little more.
Carla's got a point. So I didn't even talk about this, but when I was a juvenile officer, I mean, we're talking here about this stuff is, to epidemic levels and it's coming faster. Y'all, we've had problems in shared schools for years. They were shooting up aspirin at the middle school when I was a juvenile officer, crushing it, putting it in a syringe, and shooting up with it at the middle school. And they were puffing at the middle school. So we've always had problems. It's what was done to prevent those from getting worse. And let me tell you, the hammer came down at the middle school. They were immediately brought into the juvenile office. And when they have to go before a judge, that puts a whole different aspect on a kid. They don't want to go before a judge. Ouachita School District, they give them a choice. They can either go pay a fine and go to in-school suspension, or they could go to court. They have had a massive drop because they're sending their kids to the court system. The parents don't want to go to the court system because they have to take off work. Those kids don't wanna stand before a judge, because it's nerve-wracking to stand before a judge. I've worked with them for years, and it's not fun to have to deal with. So you have to find something that is gonna be a deterrent to them. I mean, going to in-school suspension is like a cakewalk to some of them. They just have to do a couple of days and they're right back into the school system again. This problem has been around. It just went from marijuana cigarettes to a nice shiny little pen that gives out fruity flavors and can get them in. This is not just a new problem. This has been a problem. And it's just doing certain things to handle it so that the kids, and it's gonna be in the elementary, it's probably been in the elementary, they just haven't got caught yet, because elementary kids are really smart these days. Most of y'all, well, I don't know, I'm pretty old in here, the Just Say No program started, the Red Ribbon. Okay, now it's just turned into a Red Ribbon Week. We learned at a young age what drugs and cigarettes can do to you. And that instilled in a lot of us, and it was back to back every year, and then it just kind of went away. And now you just get a red ribbon. Just say no. What are we saying no to? So it goes into a lot of education. Yes, I know that costs money, but you'd be surprised at the people who would volunteer their time to come in and teach these kids. I don't know who the ones that are doing it at Second Chance. Do they have, people from the prison, people from the law enforcement, people that have actually addicts, that have overcome this stuff? I mean, you've got to let them see what the effects are and look at the deterrents there.
Yes, I'm a parent of an elementary student and an intermediate student. My concern was when I found this out through Facebook. There was no communication from the school whatsoever. I'm extremely involved with my child and with a lot of other children in this community. So the lack of communication, we can't wrap around these children and teach them, educate them, protect them if we don't know that it's an issue. So I'm thankful that y'all are doing the special board meeting, but it was very frustrating to see that on Facebook and to know that if it didn't get posted on Facebook and then get taken down very quickly, that us parents wouldn't know.
I had
That's
a
a
lady
problem.
shared on it. It got out. Even
Only
though they
because
didn't
you
want it out, I got it out.
reposted it, it came down
Yes.
immediately.
Yeah,
And
just
when
when-
you shared
then I
it,
posted
that's
it,
the
yes.
only reason it
And
went
we
back
all
out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's,
So,
I have a granddaughter that's going into the intermediate school and I'm scared to death. My father was a narcotics officer. I've gone through the DARE program, my kids have gone through the DARE program. There needs to be something to keep this stuff out of the schools and to let kids know what it is. There's a lot of kids that they don't know. I've had to talk with my granddaughter about if somebody comes up and wants you to try something fruity, no, say no. They don't know that. They don't know the Just Say No. They don't know the DARE program. Like she's saying, they're handing out a red ribbon. What is Red Ribbon Week? I mean, unless somebody talks about it, the deputies here who are doing the Danger Dodger program, I hear now that that's gonna be going away. Why? But because every kid can't be involved in it, every kid doesn't get to be a danger dodger, it's not right, That's just my opinion.
How often do y'all check the vehicles of the high schoolers? Do y'all? Is that allowed? Because I heard a lovely story from my 10th grader that apparently there is an employee at Walmart that has a fake ID, buying a ton of vapes of all sorts, putting them in the car. They leave them in the car, in the console, in the wherever, the door, and then the other children are coming by, leaving doors unlocked, coming by, gathering theirs, 50, leaving their couple $100, and then they go distribute them. I don't know if you're aware that they're being swapped out in vehicles on the school campus, but they definitely are. And my other concern is my daughter's in 10th grade. She's an AP student. She's a great kid. She's not in trouble. I bet you could count on one hand how many times she has been able to go to the bathroom in your schools since she's been in high school, because she's terrified of ending up in a stall and someone coming in behind her, getting in trouble for vaping, and then her going down with them. because I don't know if that's how it works, but I can tell you, I know 10 girls that are holding their bladders for all 8 hours that they're here because they are terrified of ending up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I think that's happening, and I don't think it's fair. I love that y'all have a new system, and I have heard of it, and I hear that y'all are closing bathrooms, and I heard, but if there truly is a missed or a vape system, alarm system, I mean, we need more, whatever that is, or however that works. We can't be dealing with struggling, we're not, but I definitely think we should consider something more for the bathrooms.
My kid was a victim of the innocent last name.
Yeah, and that's the problem, they will not go to the bathroom.
I would add too, that we do have, I can think of 4 for sure, single stalls that are.
I think the problem is they don't have enough time between classes, because now they have to go to certain bathrooms, and now it's a single person, well, if that person sits there texting the whole 3 minutes, however time they have going between classes, I think that's also tends to be where the issue, because she did tell me that, but I don't think there's enough, I mean, there's only so much time in the day, and I completely get that, and that's what I explained to her.
I think the biggest thing is you can go back and forth all day long, but what are we doing at the front door to make everybody's life easier? We have 0 weapons detection. Weapons detection systems catch drugs, catch vape pens. They're not metal detectors. What are we doing in the schools, outside the schools, to protect them from the inside? That's what we're not discussing, and I know that's not what this meeting is for, but that's the problem. We don't have these things in place. God forbid we have an active shooter. God forbid we do these things. The drug program is just the bottom of the barrel to a bigger problem that we have that we're not addressing in the schools.
So research does say that you're exactly right. We've researched it and we looked into grants and things like that like 2 or 3 years ago with the vape detectors, and most schools have reported that they actually cause more of a problem than they're not as helpful. Kids have even like figured out how to make them go off when they're not even using a vape, and they
You get
just
some
sit back and
e-ball
watch everybody.
weapons detections and you'll catch vapes, you'll catch guns and knives and everything else.
Yeah,
You'll be surprised what you catch.
The research does show that the high quality metal detectors, entrance from just a few doors is what, there's a couple of schools, El Dorado was one of them, that implemented what you're saying, and they didn't do it for safety reasons as much as they did to keep the vapes and things out.
Well, like I said, we don't call them metal detectors where I'm from. It's weapons detection. They don't do metal. It senses an object in a square and whatever, and it takes very small monitoring to do. Yes, they're expensive, but when you look at the grand scheme of it, it's what's gonna save these schools in the long run.
Isn't there someone already standing at the door checking for a badge?
Yeah, but that doesn't.
I mean, but there's someone already there, so give them 2 jobs, a badge and look at the screen, something, because you're right, I mean.
Did you work it on the radio?
I shared this with, Ms. Caldwell. Like if you go into their newer part of their building and you see their bathrooms, like I don't know if it looks like a prison bathroom or how to best describe it. Ultimately they have windows in the restrooms because all the stalls go all the way up. There's a vape detector in each individual, bathroom. I don't have the numbers, but they did say that they trained their kids on what it would be like coming into the buildings. And they gave them X amount, I think the first week of school, and they threw them away. They just told them, hey, this is, we're gonna
This is your free pass, basically.
and ultimately, they started throwing them away. Now, comparatively speaking, both their nicotine and drug policy is vastly different than ours. We have one of the strictest, nicotine and THC policies around. Like, I couldn't find one, when I kinda started looking at it, and I've looked at it for 2 different reasons. Once was because of the 10 days. We have one of the strictest THC. We do supportive groups for, when we speak about second chance, those kids have check-ins with a counselor once a week. They have grade check-ins, they have, social emotional check-ins. So there's things that we're doing, that I don't think every district is gonna do. You said something about, it being a committee. Anytime a kid is put into Second Chance, it is a committee that does it. We have a counselor involved, we have Ms. Quisha involved, Quisha Gibson she's one of our social workers, she's involved, and admin has to be involved. And the parents have to come. And then in the TLC, that, I think some people might have misunderstood, the drug education is not being done on a computer. Those are actual real life people. Some of their academics are computer based. But the counseling and drug education is a real life person. Yes.
Are y'all against drug sweeps and the dogs like we did the year before last? Are y'all against that? Well, I think the best step forward is contact the chief, the sheriff, and give them an open campus next year to come. They won't tell anybody. I mean, if you got a standardized testing there, something like that, tell them on that semester. And I think they will hit this campus hard enough that we'll sit there. So they will check their bathrooms too. They will catch those kids. Now, I do know if the backpack's in the hall, you may not be able to make arrests. But I know if y'all remember, if we did that before, we uncovered a whole lot of stuff we didn't know we had. And I think that might be the most effective way and cost-effective way is get with the chief, get with the sheriff, and let them bring 5 or 6 people in, and let them work in Saline County and do the same thing up there.
Yeah, and I met with them 3 or 4 weeks ago, and left that meeting with they were gonna work on organizing some sweeps. We were gonna work on, how to educate the community and that sort of thing. And so we held our first parent night, at SIS. Nobody came, but we're trying. So we're working on the education side, but they're working on how to do the drug screen, or the drug schools.
I was student in intermediate school, and I knew nothing about that meeting.
It was, Thursday, I have a kid at SAS as well, and probably got 6 to 8 text messages. So if you're not getting them, get with us and just make sure you're on the right list.
Absolutely.
So, I think we have identified that this is an issue. I mean, it's not just Sheridan schools. I mean, we know it's everywhere. So, but Homestead.
All we care about is you.
This is our community, and these are the kids that we're responsible for, and so we want to do the best by them. And I think everybody, and just this young lady right here mentioned about her daughter being scared to death after, and that breaks my heart. That's just not right. And so there's things that I've listened. I tried to make notes. Some things that we can implement as a district, the drug dogs and sweeps. I think maybe some new drug education programs, like Crosby was talking about, at lower levels. Because these kids, once they start taking those vapes, even if it's nicotine vape, it can do major damage to those little bodies. So we want to, I think that's a good idea. And then we have, Mr. Pitts, we discussed about some bathroom protection devices, and he actually implemented it in one of his other schools, and so we talked about that a little bit, see if that's a possibility, and how you get those in. So those things are being discussed. We do appreciate everybody. I mean, it is a concern. I mean, it is.
Won't y'all run the dogs through the schools tomorrow, unannounced?
They can't get ready. Can't work it. I've got a question about that.
I got a dog in town.
We need about 6. Let's go back to the handbook. It goes back to what she said. I think when you sign on to park on Sheridan School, don't you allow a search of your vehicle? Does that change?
Yeah, so we actually, hired a security guard in addition to also report the high school. What was that, probably last year, I believe? And so his primary duty is parking lot sweeps and checking doors, make sure doors are locked and that sort of thing.
But when you park your car on the campus, are you not allowing yourself to be searched?
Yes, I think so. I think
I don't know now. I think when you sign that contract, you allow your car to be searched. It used to be that way.
Because when we were there, we were searching. Yeah.
that's a legal thing, are you not getting into a due process, situation?
Now, whenever you get your car, you gotta sign.
Sign off.
We signed that
All
way.
vehicles on the campus are subject to a
We did that.
visual search for
Yes.
us to open doors and move inside a vehicle. We need a reasonable suspicion, something that's been identified during a visual search. But we can look in the windows of any vehicle that's out there. To enter a vehicle, we need more than just, hey, open the door. There has to be a reasonable suspicion, something we've seen, something that's been reported to be in the vehicle, something of that nature.
And I think the principals can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think whenever you get a parking pass, part of the privilege there is that you allow yourself to be randomly drug tested, that the only kids who are randomly drug tested are ones that have gotten parking passes, or is that?
Students who are involved in extracurricular activities and students who have parking passes are part of the random drug screening list.
Well, there's also, in there still a section in the handbook, if you're suspected, it's in two different sections, if I didn't bring mine. But you have one that goes with activities, but also have another section that they hadn't changed, I hadn't looked at this year's. If you're under suspicion of, you can require a drug test. I don't know, I didn't bring my handbook.
Randomly drug
It
testing
used to be,
the
it's been that way
driver.
for years. It's in two different sections of the handbook though.
Have we random drug tested any drivers this year?
Any just,
Have you done any random drug testing for the drivers this year?
For athletes or drivers.
Or any,
Athletes.
I mean, I know the athletes do, because I've heard those.
I don't
But
know.
do we think that would help?
Good.
I mean, if it's a privilege of ours, it's not terribly expensive.
I'm not
We
sure.
can do it at home.
Who's on the random test list?
We have random
Anybody
drug
that
tests.
drives.
We have done some random drug screens this year. I can't tell you that we've done somebody that's a driver only, but we have done some
I
random
know
drug
we do
screens.
athletes, I've heard those stories.
My athletes have never, they've said it's never happened to them, never been brought to their attention.
My daughter was randomly drug tested twice last school year, when she was a senior.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, twice?
In one school year, yeah.
Of all the people to test, you're gonna test her.
But she was.
It's not hard to overlook my kid, need to be, when there's overlook my kid.
I just have a question, because we walked in after this was already up on the screen. Are those numbers the high school, or are those all of Sheridan schools?
Those are all Sheridan schools, and those are our vaping numbers.
Okay.
So we.
Not THC.
That's right, so we treat THC under drugs. I'll pull vaping numbers, to discuss vaping policy. So all of those numbers would be a little higher if we had included vaping THC.
But they include the elementary,
That's
SIS,
right.
okay.
That's right.
Anybody else?
So are y'all gonna get with the law enforcement and work out a plan for Joe Sweeps?
I met with them 3 or 4 weeks ago.
But
We can
I
make a
went
phone
on
call.
that last year, it didn't work out, okay? I mean, what I'm saying, we need to actually line up for next year. I don't, we're too late this year to do anything.
Right, they're supposed to be working on a plan for that and getting
Well,
those,
I will-
and
I
we're
will-
working on a plan for the education part of it.
Then I'll be on there back then.
But it can't be announced.
That's what I'm saying. Give them the back.
Don't give a heads up.
No, I'm saying, they need as far as to come on the campus without any. No, that's what I'm saying, they just need to know that they can come on anytime.
They run the dogs around the vehicles too, that's probable cause.
Yep.
You know, anytime anybody has a, suggestion, I feel free to contact superintendent's office. Call, schedule a meeting. He is best. Sit down, talk to him, and obviously you've got several things you gotta do besides that, but he will make time and sit down with you. So,
Shouldn't take 3 to 4 weeks to orchestrate a drug sweep, cause I myself could make a phone call and by tomorrow I'll have 6 dogs here to do every campus, so being the superintendent, you just think
But
you'd
you
be
can't do them all in one day, because if you do one
Well, I
here.
think
You can do them all in one day.
School's about over now, though, isn't it?
You could do them all in one
It's
day,
about
and get
over.
enough dogs to do it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to hit every school at once.
Yeah.
To
And
do
that
that.
would be an issue.
Yeah, we'd have to hit every school at once.
Well, I've talked to the police chief, I've talked to Pete, and they said they were all for it. And I'll get back on them, and put pressure on them to get lined up for next year. The school's basically out right now.
Mr. Pitts, we had one full sweep last year, is that correct? We have 1 or 2? Where the dogs came in, not this year, but last year?
I know, I don't know about full sweeps, I can't tell you the exact number, but I know whenever Officer McCool's there and Grim's there, there's many times where they hit a classroom or two, most of the time we go with Mr. Soaps.
We can reliably do about 4 classrooms inside of a period, and whenever McCool is there with the dog, we'll sit down, we'll pick out 4 rooms that are in reasonable proximity, so people don't see us moving all over the building. We'll get those kids, they put their bags out in the hallway, we run the dog, and then, you know, that's typically within 1 class period.
But Mr. Glenn, we did 1 or 2 major, where I wanna say it was Jefferson County in conjunction with Grant County that came in and did it.
That was year 4 last.
We did one, we did one, I'm not talking about this year, last year.
Yeah,
We did
okay,
2
yeah,
last
I
year.
know about that.
I wanna say that, please don't quote me on it, cause I'm not trying to give anybody any false information. So we had the whole building searched. I wanna say that we had the dogs hit on almost like, it was like 40 something.
A lot.
And so we conducted 40 searches of all of the dogs, and I'm talking like they were cool dogs, like they're the real deal. Not Remy, not that Remy's not capable of doing that. Out of the 40, we found, the only thing that we found was a student that had brought a prescription drug for asthma or something, and he freaked out, and he put I think it was Singular, and he stuck the pill, but we searched those bags, the contact, and you can, when the contact from the homes, you can almost just tell. So 2, I wanna say I know we did it once, and I don't think we found any that specific day.
Somebody over here first.
I was just curious, how many's in our graduating class this year?
295.
And 40's a lot out of 1 class when there's 4 in that school. I work at Children's Hospital, and I can tell you from deep down inside, every child matters. And it doesn't matter if you check 100 backpacks, if you find the one that has, like the deadly, the girl that's dying, that's all that matters. That's what we want. As parents, we want every individual child to matter. And if that means we hire more employees, then we raise the taxes again. We're willing to pay for roads. We'll pay to have our kids live. We'll pay for our children's health. But I don't think, no offense, I don't think 40 is a lot when our graduating class is almost 300 and there's 4 grades in that school.
Now, I'm not saying that 40 is or isn't a lot.
Well, he said a lot, so I feel like that he felt like that was a lot. I don't feel like that's a lot.
So the issue is that the kids have the baits on them, okay? When we run the dog, we can't run the dog on the person. It has to be the bag. There is a law that protects them. We cannot do that. So it's really not, it's just deteriorating them from bringing it. Oh gosh, they might bring the dogs today. But you're not gonna guarantee to find it because it's on them. That's the issue.
Is that because you don't have parents' permission?
No, that is a law. You're
Okay,
violating their rights when you try to run the dog on a person. It has to be their bags, the vehicles, things like that. So that's what people do not understand.
So, let me understand you correctly. So you're saying you can't line students up against that wall and walk a dog along?
I cannot.
No,
It is-
really, it's against the
No,
law.
you violate their rights
Wow.
when you do that.
I did not
You
know
can
that.
line their backpacks up, but the kids have the baits on them.
So they keep them on them because they know that y'all can't search them.
We wind them down. If we have a kid come up to the office, we suspect to be under the influence, whatever. Admin searches their bags, I wind them down with the wand. There is metal in the baits and we find it.
Do you remember my situation?
I do.
Okay, then can I ask, how did you find it in his boot? Because that's where he told me it was. How did that
So
work?
they take their shoes
You
off.
made him take his shoes
Yes.
off and it fell
Yes.
out. I was
So
just
they take their
curious
shoes off as well
yeah.
because that is
I
another
wanted to
spot
know
you can hide.
Your story matched to his. That's
Yes,
all
sir.
I was.
Yes,
I want to give everybody all that information on it.
And we have made changes to our search procedures at the high school. You know, we recognize that we can't run the dog on people. We were fairly certain at times that there were people, and this has been several years back, but we were fairly certain at times we were missing things in searches because kids know where we can and can't search. And we don't disrobe students with the exception of removing shoes while we're conducting a search. So, 2-3 years ago, we made sure that using metal detecting wands became a standard part of our search protocol. And because of those wands, we have found things in the past several years that were not previously discovered in what would have been our standard search going back several years. So steps have been taken to enhance the safety of students in terms of how we're conducting searches with the metal detecting wands. And it has led to us finding things that would have been missed at times in years past.
Also to clarify what Coach Ingram was saying a while ago, when she said the 40 backpacks, what she meant was of all of those backpacks that were searched, the dog hit on 40 bags.
Yeah,
and
it
they
just concerned me when he felt like that was a lot.
No, they searched the 40 bags, and in 40 bags they found one day because of the substances that are in the bags that come in our schools from the home.
Since this has been pretty, focused on vapes only, are you guys planning to call another meeting to address the drugs like the THC and stuff, or are y'all gonna send something out to everyone? Does all these parents and grandparents, do they need to send an FOI into the police department and the sheriff's office to get that information? Are y'all willing to discuss any of that tonight? I have a direct question. It's not an unknown thing, and there's officers in this room. And I spoke to this to 4 board members, or 3 board members, I guess. One of them stepped out a couple of years ago. Well, what happens when one of these vapes shows up and it has fentanyl or meth or something like that in it, and you guys are playing around with these things here, and that vape gets passed around to all of these students? Now, y'all probably still have that email in your box. If you don't, I can resend it to you. But it's a very serious problem. You can look in the headlines within the last week. There have been kids at schools in other states that have gotten their hands on a vape that under normal circumstances would be considered just a nicotine vape. And those things have fentanyl and different things in it. Now, what are y'all doing about that? Do you have people trained? Are y'all ready to tackle, a number of students passed out in a classroom, hallway, or in a bathroom that doesn't have a vape detector in it? If they've gotten their hands on something like that, where is this going? Do y'all have a plan for that? Or do we just need to have meetings and send FOIA requests and ask over and over again, or do y'all really have a plan for it?
Are you asking specifically what we would do, like say at the high school, if we did
Are you prepared? Are you prepared for what other schools are dealing with already in other states?
At the high school, and I'm gonna try to put Nurse Bailey on, I do believe that we have, many adults, a big number
part
trained.
of the teacher training every year. How to administer Narcan is part of that.
Well, do y'all recognize that that is a problem? And that is, something that seems to not be discussed in this meeting. We're talking about nicotine vapes, but the reality is you're dealing with kids that do not know what they're putting in their hand or putting in their mouth or drawing into their lungs.
I probably did it long ago.
Yeah, well, it needs to be something that really needs to be stuck out. I've got 2 nieces up here. They're young. And, me and this board have talked many times over lots of issues, privately and in public. This is something you guys really need to pay attention to, because to me, as an uncle sitting out here, it looks like these numbers that are up here, when they don't reflect the other part of it, like the THC, then that definitely deflects away from any other kind of contraband. Glenn brought up an instance that happened a couple of years ago, and that's the reason I emailed you guys. And it's because of a different substance that was in a vape. And I know all the details about that. Y'all don't need to deflect away from this and wait. And if you think that it's okay to just put somebody in 3 days school suspension, 10 days out of school suspension, or 5 days, when they're all ganged up in a bathroom and they're passing these things around, this lady back here, I've heard it from many people. Their kids are in the bathrooms. They're smoking. These other kids won't even go in there because they're scared of it. This is not new news. This is something that we discussed, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? What's changed? Other than tonight, we're talking about vapes, and the information about the drugs that are in them is not here. I mean, was it narrowed down so much? Was it a hit job on Glenn not to bring the information about the THCs? I mean, what's the deal?
It wasn't a hit job on anybody.
What? I'm just asking straight up.
Okay.
A lot of people have asked about that.
Due to the LEARNS Act, we have Narcan available to any student that wants to go up and get it. They can go at any time. We don't question them. We don't ask anything. They just get it and go. We check it every day to make sure nobody's gotten it. If they have, we refill that. Also, all of our SROs carry Narcan at all times, even at the intermediate and elementary school. On their person. We're ready to Narcan somebody if we need to.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
And sir, when we find, at the hospital, when we find a vape, we confiscate all the vapes and we give them to our SRO officer and they test them immediately. And once they're tested, their test will come back immediately, but they also send every vape to the crime lab. Like, is that, am I misspeaking?
Yes.
That
We
they
do,
send them
if
all?
we suspect it to be something else other than THC, we will send it to the crime lab. It may take months to get back, but we will send it.
I just hope it don't reach a point to where the wrong thing comes into the school, and we're talking about these types of issues when it relates to something that could be that serious. I don't know if anyone's really telling these kids, or, you know, I'm hearing people out here saying that, you know, they don't hear anything from the school at all about any of these different things that are going on. It comes down to calling a special meeting.
Yeah. They seem to forget.
Sometimes, you know,
They work for us, we don't work for you.
Do what now?
Sometimes you're not meant to be informed.
Well, when it comes down to something like this though, Glenn, I mean, honestly, you know, we're all
Should be.
adults in here, you know, this is a real problem. It's not something that's brand new. And yet, it, you know, my opinion as an uncle sitting out here, my kids, both of them graduated from up here recently. You know, I'm sitting out here and I don't see the THC and all that stuff involved in this. It's the same thing. They're a drug delivery device. We discussed it. You know, I get everybody's got an opinion. Kick them out, don't kick them out. You know, talk to them, don't talk to them. You know, what happens when somebody gets hold of the wrong one? It can happen. I hope it never happens, but it can.
And then we gotta determine what's in the vape. And then I think everybody agrees there's probably a different punishment for a nicotine vape versus a drug vape. But you don't know what's in it. So once we find it and it's turned over to our law enforcement and it's tested, and God forbid some of these things happen. I mean, it could. I mean, it could happen tomorrow. I do think there is more preparation than, you know, even better because our SROs do have those things on their persons. And we probably need to do some more training for some teachers. You know, if the SRO's on the other end of the building, maybe it's where it's closer to a central place where somebody else maybe.
In all of our AED boxes. We have 2 in every single AED box on the hospital campus. I keep it on me, the SRO keeps it on them. All of our teachers are trained on how to use it. If I'm not mistaken, we.
Well, I apologize about spelling my FOIA request out right, or my petition out right. So back to the numbers on the THC situation. Are y'all willing to post them on the school site, or y'all wanna call another meeting? Y'all wanna put this on the agenda so we can discuss the THC directly, since I messed up tonight? So everybody gets these numbers, because people need to be informed, because I'm telling you, I've had 100 parents tell me they talked to their kids after they found out this was a problem. So people need to be informed that we have this problem. And they should, it's their right, they should have get it off my Facebook, or somebody's Facebook. And we need these numbers on the THC, and that's my fault. I apologize to everybody.
You shouldn't have to put in exactly.
Are we having more problems with THC vapes, or are we having more problems with nicotine vapes at the school? That was the biggest reason that I was curious of the numbers. I was wondering which one is more of a problem.
THC is dead.
We know the THC is obviously the bigger problem, but as far as the numbers wise, what, you know, what these people are catching, you know, what they're finding is.
What's your next step, Eric? How do you want to handle, how do you want us to get this information, Board President?
We can sit down, we can put it on a board, it can be an agenda item, I mean, that's what other boards would do.
I think we have discussion on it, because I tell you.
You know, we can have an agenda item, we can talk about it. Maybe by that time, law enforcement has come back with well, we don't want to give the schedule for the drug suite, but as far as how many it will be,
June, not usually a slow time for a board meeting. So why don't you put it on the agenda and give us those numbers that month? On the vapes and drugs, any drugs that's been handled, it's just any drugs. And then put it on, that's usually a slow board meeting, and put it on the agenda.